Afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to go pick up some necessities, and it's better to go early than later. So, no milk. Actually, there's 2% milk, no skim milk. There's no eggs. There's lots of meat. Well, not lots of meat. There was enough meat. There was the amount of meat you would expect. So, I got meat. Yesterday and into the morning and the last couple of days, I've been noticing a more militant attitude in the press's tweets about self-distancing and social isolation and all this other stuff. Like the undertone of, you guys better comply and soon because they're going to make this mandatory. And they're going to make this mandatory. Justin Trudeau came out today and was basically saying, you better listen. I was trying to collect some of these examples, and I came up with a few, but these are just quoting the minister that I'm going to quote, or that I'm going to show you at the end of the video today. But anyway, here is Ariel Piat-Sauvé, and she says, Minister Haydu, on the government's message of social distancing staying in, I'm asking Canadians and I'm recommending them, and I hope that I won't have to order them. Hashtag Covid19. And this is Rona Ambrose. And she used to be like a contender for the premier of like the conservative leadership and potentially the premier of Ontario. Anyway, Rona says 1 of 2. At Justin Trudeau, Canadians are ready for you to lead us further through this crisis. It's time to declare a state of emergency in Canada and tell us to shelter in place except for essential workers. We are ready to do our part to save others. 2 of 2. We will not view it as an assault on our civil liberties. We will see it as an assault on COVID-19. We need one message for all of Canada. Nope. I think we're doing just fine. Thank you. I don't want Justin Trudeau to take those kind of powers. No thanks. Here's Rosemary Barton, and she says, this might be your last opportunity to do this voluntarily, excuse me. And I'm going to show you the same clip here. It's just a bit longer. You'll understand which part she was referring to, but this is CPAC, and it says, PM Trudeau, enough is enough. Go home and stay home. This is what we all need to be doing, and we're going to make sure that this happens, whether by educating people more on the risks or by enforcing the rules if that's needed. Nothing that could help us is off the table. You know, there's 2 things that I'd really like from our government before saying that, yes, let's put the pedal to the metal on emergency here, okay? 2 things, just two. 1 would be maybe stop the flights landing from China, because this landed this morning at 10 a.m. Yep, right? Maybe that, just one, and that's tomorrow, scheduled. That's the first thing I'd like to see. If we're taking this seriously, let's all take this seriously, right? This isn't just Canadians shelter in place. This is let's actually do what's responsible to stop the spread of this infection. Justin Trudeau's inept, irresponsible government knew that this was a problem in January 22nd. And they've still not stopped flights from infected regions. Still. And yet we have Canadians sheltering in place. We have illegal border crossers who are being sheltered in place for 14 days by the federal government. This is an emergency, right? Not a time to quibble about who bears the cost of that. It's the taxpayer after all. But isn't it interesting that they want us to shelter in place without question? We better listen to our prime minister, and yet they're not willing to stop the flights. That's one. And the other is this, the order in council that says to limit who's coming into Canada to Chinese citizens and their common law partners or spouses. And it says, anyway, this is the amendment. Order in council 2020-0162 has been amended so that in addition to spouses, common law partners, and children of Canadian citizens and permanent residents, their parents, step-parents, guardians, and tutors can come too. Isn't that great? Let's take this super seriously. Let's create a law that bans people and has enough teeth to actually close Roxham Road. So this isn't a toothless law. This actually made a difference. This closed our border. So yay, a little bit, but it's amended to allow all of those people. And this is a guy who tweets about this. I tweet about Canadian immigration law and policy. So it's a wonder I follow him, right? But we have to understand that if this is an emergency, then act like it's an emergency. But if it's just Canadians sheltering in place while we've got plane loads of people who are flying in from infected regions daily, that seems really weird, right? Let's listen to Justin Trudeau.
Social distancing, physical distancing, is the single best way to keep the people around you safe. What does that mean? It means keeping 2 meters between yourself and someone else. It means avoiding groups. It means staying home as much as possible. If you choose to ignore that advice, if you choose to get together with people or go to crowded places, you're not just putting yourself at risk, you're putting others at risk too. Your elderly relative who's in a senior's home, or your friend with a pre-existing condition, our nurses and doctors on the front lines, our workers stocking shelves at a grocery store. They need you to make the right choices. They need you to do your part. We've all seen the pictures online of people who seem to think they're invincible. Well, you're not. Enough is enough. Go home and stay home. This is what we all need to be doing. And we're going to make sure this happens, whether by educating people more on the risks or by enforcing the rules if that's needed. Nothing that could help is off the table. Social distance.
Really? Nothing that could help? Okay, well, I've got some suggestions, right? Here's something. How are people gonna get home if you enforce the rules and enact rules or emergency situation where people have to shelter in place? Will red car be an essential service to get all the people who are landing in Toronto and Vancouver and Montreal and what was the other airport? Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, maybe? Alberta, I'm not sure. I can't remember. There was 4. There were 4 major airports that would continue to land international flights. So just weird that we're continuing to land people from infected areas. And he's saying nothing that would help is possibly off the table. What would help is stopping or landing people from infected areas. That would help stop unintended clusters. I guess all clusters are unintended. But that would help to curb new clusters. Here's Doug Ford is enjoying very, very high approval ratings after his handling of the COVID-19 crisis. CBC is talking about Ontario gives hospitals sweeping temporary powers over staffing amid COVID-19. Ontario's government is using its state of emergency declaration to give hospitals temporary new powers to respond to the pandemic, including overriding collective agreements to move staff between locations and to COVID-19 assessment centers without notice. Hospitals can now immediately redeploy staff to different hospital areas or work assignments, change schedules, or cancel vacations, and the health ministry said in a release on Saturday night. Hospitals can also employ volunteers or extra part-time temporary workers, including for unionized work. The ministry said they can also assign non-bargaining unit employees or contractors to do union work, the ministry said. These plans temporarily supersede collective agreement rules, the government says, including for layoffs, seniority, and bumping. For example, currently a hospital would be required to post a layoff notice and wait a period of time before being able to move a nurse or other unionized employee from an emergency department to a COVID-19 assessment center, the government said in a release. These measures would allow for the redeployment of staff to address the containment of COVID-19 without restriction and delay. And so, I mean, they're looking at making things much more efficient to move people, etc. And it's interesting because I used to be in a union. I used to be a union steward, and I don't know what the reasoning for the period of time for posting in a hospital is, but usually in a union contract, it's customary to have a period of time so it's not posted for like half a second and then brought down and given to the person who was standing there because they were the only people who applied during the whole posting, right? So it's just to cut down on tricks and underhanded deals that don't usually happen now because unions have gained power and it's whatever, it's the way things are now, right? Whatever that means, because welcome to a new paradigm shift, right? But this is interesting, right? So it's going to be more efficient, but yeah, if you're in the right place at the right time, you might be heading the COVID-19 assessment center for a period of time because, because the nature of the job is you're probably going to be infected, right? And after you get better, then you go back to work, right? So here's a good example of how the media sees things and how most people I know see things. So the media says, a new star is born. Canada's chief medical officers offer clarity in age of coronavirus. That's global national. And that's not global news, global national. Oh, well, it is global news. Yes, it is. Okay, global national. Okay, that's global news. Okay, that makes it even better. And yeah, it says here's the Duchess Michelle, and Duchess Michelle doesn't have a blue check mark, but she said it much better than I could, so I don't want to take credit for her thoughts. This is her thoughts on this, but I applaud them. It says Miss Tam, the news star, according to Global National, has referred to Canadians as racist rather than focusing on ways to control a deadly virus. If that's all it takes to impress them, no wonder Trudeau's PM again. Yeah, and it's quite interesting, like when the media starts to spin things, as I said yesterday, I spent the entire show yesterday showing you how inefficient and poor the response to this has been. They were telling us up until March 7th, the risk remains low to Canadians. And then March 11th, this is going to get worse before it gets better. I mean, why were they not doing anything before when we could do something, right? We could have stopped flights. We could have limited movement, all sorts of other stuff, right? We could be implementing the same procedures as it looks are working in South Korea or Singapore, but we're not, right? There's no screening. There's no temperature taking at the airport. There's no 14-day mandatory quarantines. So we could be doing more. We could have been doing more, but instead we keep landing flights and pretending that doing so is somehow making us not racist or something. Isn't that great if we all die of the Chinese coronavirus? Right? No, that's not great. That's not a good outcome. And certainly not what I hope to see. But isn't it interesting, the difference between just kind of everyday person's point of view and what the media is pushing? And despite the reality of the situation, despite the fact that these people should have acted in January, should have acted in February and said, oh my goodness, we didn't realize how serious this was. And I don't think they've ever acknowledged that they should have acted before they did. Everybody's kind of behaving like we didn't know anything until March 11th. And March 11th, things changed, right? Here's Patty Haydu, and she's looking at criminal penalties for travelers who disobey the quarantine advice. This is yesterday at 10:50 a.m. And this is what some of the tweets I was seeing were talking about. But even so, it's not enough, right? Not enough. Here's the last story for this morning. Canada, Australia pulling out of Olympics because of the coronavirus. Shocking, right? Here's the CBC article. Canadian athletes will not compete at Tokyo 2020 Games due to COVID-19 risks. The Canadian Olympic Committee, COC, and Canadian Paralympic Committee say they won't send athletes to compete at the Tokyo Games set to begin July 24th if they proceed as scheduled. Backed by the Athletes Commissions, national sports organizations, and the Government of Canada, the COC and CPC say they made the difficult decision to not send Canadian teams to the Olympics and Paralympic Games in the summer of 2020. The two committees are calling on the International Olympic Committee, IOC, to postpone the Games for a year, citing the safety of athletes and the general public amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, this is not solely about athlete health, it's about public health. The committee said in a statement Sunday night. With COVID-19 and the associated risks, it's not safe for our athletes and the health and safety of their families and the broader Canadian community for athletes to continue training towards these games. Following the announcements by the Canadian committees, Australia's chef de mission, sorry, if I got that wrong, Ian Chesterman said it's clear that the games can't be held in July and urged that they be postponed to 2021. On Monday, the Russian Olympic Committee, ROC, backed the IOC's approach of taking time to consider postponing the Tokyo Games and condemned the body's critics. We view as unacceptable any attempts to bring pressure on the organizations in charge responsible of staging the games and to force them to take rash decisions, the ROC said. On Monday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau praised the COC's decision as an example of the social distancing required to prevent the spread of the disease. Team Canada and the Canadian Paralympic team made the tough decision to not send athletes to the Olympic and Paralympic Games this summer, Trudeau said in his daily briefing in Ottawa. I know this is heartbreaking for so many people, athletes, coaches, staff, and fans, but this was absolutely the right call and everyone should follow their lead. I want to underline here, this is me, not the article, that Trudeau knows he's talking about an event in the summer, right? The slow rollout is over. People are now talking about this lasting longer. We got a notification from the kids' school yesterday saying that the kids may not be back on April 6th. They may be looking at alternative learning. So, I mean, everybody's learning on the fly. This is changing our world very rapidly, very rapidly. Okay, back to this. And people are acknowledging that, right? And I just want to spell it out. He's talking about a summer event, and he's enthusiastically saying, yeah, that's the right move. Okay, back to this. Japan's Minister Shinzo Abe, speaking at a parliamentary session, said a postponement of the Tokyo Olympic Games would be unavoidable if the Games cannot be held in a complete way because of the coronavirus pandemic. If it is difficult to hold the Games in a complete way, a decision of postponement would be unavoidable, he said. Abe said he hoped the IOC would make a decision early if it is postponed because the process would involve a lot of work and should start as soon as possible. So, yeah, from the stoppage of all sports, basically, like there's no basketball, there's no hockey playoffs, there's no anything. I have a hockey pool that I was losing in a spectacular way, and now I can't even claim the Sacco, right? Like it would be an honorary Sacco, I suppose, but I can't even, I didn't lose it because it just disappeared, right? We'll all play again next year, and I don't know, who knows, right? But there are real impacts to this. The Olympic Games is another casualty to this thing that's happening to our world. And what a strange thing for everyone to experience, right? Like this thing that everyone is experiencing, and we're experiencing it online and in this isolated bubble of connectedness. It's really strange. And I wonder how long. I wonder if the internet will last through this whole thing, or if it'll have to go out, or who knows, right? And I mean, there's censorship that comes out of China, censorship that comes out of Iran. I've seen other videos coming out of Italy and other things happening, and people out of Japan from the cruise ship, etc. And I mean, there's so much information. Who knows what the world governments could do, right? Who knows what they would do, especially with emergency powers, right? So, and I'm not predicting that. I hope the internet stays on. I hope things go back to normal. That's my hope. I'm just looking, if things go badly, right? Interesting stuff. But I hope, and I don't think things will go badly at this point. The coronavirus isn't all over China. All of China isn't locked down. So there's no reason to think this can't be contained with the social distancing we're doing. But I think that it's folly to continue to allow flights. So, sorry about the end there. I just kind of talked. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out canadapoly.com. Check out canadareport.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands.